Welcome to the 2021 instantiation of this course, Software Design and Modelling. My name's Perdita Stevens. I'm a professor at the School of Informatics at the University of Edinburgh, and I want to start by saying a few words about how we're going to run this course this year. In a normal year, in most weeks, what we'll have is 2 lectures and 1 guided lab, and normally speaking what that means is that we have all of you sitting at dice machines in a lab in Appleton Tower. And I typically run this course with a considerable degree of flipping, which is to say that there are generally some videos and some readings that you need to do each week, and then we often spend quite a high proportion of the lecture time discussing them and doing exercises based on them. This year, thanks to the lovely virus, everything is different. So everything is going to be online this year, and you can see Learn for all of the course material arranged by weeks, and hopefully that's reasonably clear. In summary, what's happening is, instead of lectures which you turn up to at a scheduled time in a lecture theatre, we're going to have videos, and that, please note, is in addition to the videos that are a normal part of the course anyway. There'll be some revision and self-assessment quizzes for you to just kind of verify that you didn't drop off in the middle of the lecture. I'll probably do more or less of those depending on how much people like them and find them useful, so do please give me feedback on that and I will adjust as we go. The hardest thing for me to think about has been the labs, because it's not really realistic to have all of you and me in labs in Appleton Tower this year, and so instead the labs are going to be self-guided. But what that means is that instead of using the collection of rather bleeding-edge software on dice machines, which somebody else installed, and we have lab demonstrators around to help you avoid the bugs of, and so on, as in a normal year, labs instead are going to be online, and in order to avoid having to tell you to install a lot of software, we're mostly going to use online tools that work through your web browser and operate in the cloud. There might be 1 or 2 exceptions, we will see about that, but if so, I will talk to you and try to find out what machines you've got available, and we'll see how easy it is for you to remotely use dice machines and all that kind of stuff. Mostly we're going to use online tools as we go this year. There is going to be a live session every week. It's labelled discussion/Q&A. It will actually be different things in different weeks. So some weeks what I will be doing is using those sessions for the kind of exercises that we would normally do under the flipping regime in a lecture slot. Sometimes that will be for clearing up any issues that might have arisen in the labs, given that you didn't do them in a synchronous way and get a chance to ask them about them at the time. Sometimes it might be a more informal discussion and Q&A. I will do my best to make sure that these are useful, and you should plan to attend that live session every week, please. So it's scheduled for Friday at 10 AM, and hopefully that should be reasonably convenient. I will also at least experiment with having office hours. In other words, when I say I'm going to be available on this platform in this hour and just turn up if you have any questions. Those you shouldn't feel obliged to turn up for. You should turn up for those only if you have something you want to talk about. And depending on whether people come to those or not, I will do more or less of them. So, if they're crowded, I'll run more of them, and if nobody turns up, I'll probably stop running them at all. So again, if you'd like them to continue, turn up, and we'll see how it goes. We're going to use Piazza for questions about the course, and we may also use it for announcements. Okay, so although with particularly critical, especially time-critical things, I will also email if I post something on Piazza. I do not promise that every important piece of information that appears on Piazza will also be emailed, so you must join the Piazza and follow it regularly, please. The assessment of this course has 2 elements. This is not very different from a normal year. We have a lab assessment which is worth 50% of the credit of the course, and this takes place in place of the week 6 lab. So in a normal year you would do it more or less under exam conditions in the Appleton Tower labs. This year it's going to be online, and again, more details about how that's going to run in due course. Now, the idea of the assessment is that it's really not very hard, provided that you have kept up with the course, and in particular with the lab exercises. The reason why I do this is because this course more or less falls into two halves. The first part is relatively straightforward, introducing a lot of UML-based techniques and notation, and because it's not very hard, people sometimes get the impression that they can just catch up later and revise for the exam at the end. But the problem is the second half of the course really relies on you being thoroughly familiar with those techniques so that we can build on them later on. For example, we'll talk in the second half of the course about domain-specific languages, and it's really important that you have a thorough grounding in the standard language, the general-purpose language UML, before we can do that effectively. And so the purpose of that lab assessment in week 6 is to make sure that you're in a good state to go on and follow the second half of the course. Provided that you are keeping up with the material of the course, people tend to feel that it's to some extent free marks. Okay, the assessment is not very hard, and once you've done that 50%, you've done 50% of the assessment of the course. Quite a lot of people have at that point got enough marks that they can't fail the course whatever they do in the exam, and people tend to quite like that. Then the other 50% is in a normal year, it's a standard written exam in December. This year, of course, it's going to be online, like all the exams. The material of the paper will not be very different, so we'll still have the standard format. There will be a compulsory question 1, which has a number of different parts aiming to make sure that you've got a reasonable coverage of the whole material of the course. And then there'll be a choice of 2 questions, where you can pick whichever one you're more comfortable with. But it will, of course, be done online. And that's about all there is to say about that.